Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your daily dose of zombies news from the game and its community here on Cod Zombies HQ. Thank you so much for tuning in today, where we've got an awesome show for you. So let's kick things right off with our first story of the day. Treyarch has finally done an in-depth reveal of the Zombies Outbreak mode that's going to be releasing later this week on Thursday. But to me, the most important part of everything that Treyarch talked about the mode today is where they explain what exactly us players are going to be doing in this new Zombies mode. Because while the idea of an open world zombies experience sounds pretty good, if what you're tasked with actually accomplishing isn't that interesting, then the whole mode will kind of fail as a result. So Treyarch has obviously put a lot of time and effort into giving players a variety amount of primary objectives to accomplish to try to keep them engaged in this Outbreak game mode. So when you first begin a Zombies Outbreak match, you will be tasked with a primary objective, something that you and your team must accomplish in order to progress to the next main objective. Almost consider it like a super long extended round in a zombies match, where the actual location of your main objective is going to be located a fairly long distance away from your starting location. So it's up to you to decide how you actually get there, and whether or not you decide to tackle any side areas or do some exploring on the way to hopefully better upgrade your gear, perks, and weaponry from various loot crates that will be scattered around the map itself. Once you finally reach your main objective, Treyarch has a few that they're going to randomly rotate through for us to actually accomplish. The first of these kinds of objectives is something that we're all pretty well used to in a zombies match, and that is simply a defense objective, where it will give you one or several locations to defend from an incoming horde of zombies. I would imagine in a very similar way to the way you turn on power using the ether generators on the map Firebase Z. So you get to the objective, you trigger the defense step, zombies will spawn out of the ground all around you, and then you have to simply defend the objective until either a timer is completed or you take down a certain number of zombies. So just a straightforward defend mission can be one of your primary objectives. The second kind of primary objective is similar to the first, as it's essentially a defense mission but a mobile one. So it's basically an escort mission where you'll be tasked with defending a rover that's going to be moving through the map, getting attacked by zombies. You gotta defend it until it reaches its final destination. So once again, a very straightforward primary objective similar to the first, except this time it's going to be a mobile defense. Next up, the objectives start to get a little bit more interesting with a retrieve objective, where the crux of this objective is you're going to need to transport an item from one location to another. But while you're holding said item, you won't be able to sprint or use any weapons while the zombies try to attack you. It's basically similar to the golden ball step of the Die Maschine Easter egg. So this is definitely a step that you're going to want to have some buddies for in your game to help protect you, so that you'll have someone actually counter the attacking zombies while you're trying to move said item. There was some rumors before that playing the Outbreak mode will require at least 2 players and up to 4 players in order to actually play it, but Treyarch doesn't actually specify that here. It simply says up to 4 players, so we're kind of assuming that yes, you can play the Outbreak mode solo, but they haven't explicitly said that yet. So that's something to keep in mind as we move closer to the release date. Next up, the last 2 primary objectives are probably the most interesting of the bunch. I'm most looking forward to this one here, where it's essentially a hunt down and destroy objective, where you'll get a general location of a strong type of special infected zombie that you need to take down, where it's essentially a mini boss on the map that you've got to try to eliminate, all the while trying to deal with its primary attacks from something like the Panzersoldat, where on top of that, waves of regular zombies will continue to spawn in to keep you distracted and mobile so as to not take down this mini boss zombie so quickly and easily. This is definitely one that has a lot of promise to it. I'm really hoping that Treyarch balances these mini boss fights on the map correctly, where they're not too easy, but they're not extremely crazy crazy difficult either. The idea of having this huge open world and having to hunt down a special boss zombie on the map, looking forward to trying to track it down, all the while when you're trying to reach it, you're exploring different places, bettering your gear and armor from the loot crates. That sounds like one of the most exciting parts of this gameplay loop for this Outbreak mode. And the last type of main objective is really interesting, where it's called a holdout, where it will be set within the dark ether itself. And beyond that, it turns this large open world Outbreak map into a mini regular zombies maps with repairable barriers, perhaps some buyable doors, and your objective is the same as it is on Firebase C and Die Maschine. You have to simply survive in an enclosed environment for a specific amount of time. So nothing to defend necessarily, but you've just got to stay alive in what is essentially a small little zombie survival map while zombies continuously attack you from all sides. The transition from the large open world environment when you're trying to reach this holdout objective to this small static little zombies map environment when you actually start your primary objective is going to be an interesting transition, and I think that dichotomy is going to be something that's going to be really cool to actually experience. But of course, each of these kinds of objectives are randomized, and I also assume the locations in which they take place are also fairly randomized, meaning that once you complete your primary objective, by the way, if you end up failing a primary objective, your game is over, so it'll just straight up end the game for you if you lose your primary objective. But if you beat it, you do have two options. You can exfil, just like we've been able to exfil on other zombies maps before. You go to an area, take down a certain number of zombies, the chopper whisks you away to freedom, or you can continue on with a new primary objective, where it will teleport you either to another location on this big fire team map or a different map entirely in order for you to first intend, let's do it again, another primary objective. Except that they claim that the second time you go in to try to complete an objective, it's going to get progressively more difficult, with the enemy zombies' health increasing and also the number of them that will end up spawning. So it creates a little bit of a risk versus reward scenario, where if you complete maybe like 2 or 3 main objectives and the last one was really hard and you don't think that you'll be able to complete another primary objective if you try to go at it again, you could always just say, you know what guys, let's just exfil, let's get the extra XP and new kinds of Ethereum crystals, cut our losses, let's end it off there, instead of trying to risk completing the next objective, which you might fail and get no bonus of anything. Which now, more than ever, is actually an important decision to make in zombies, because before, if you're leveled up a certain amount of times, you got all your raw Ethereum crystals to level up all your skills, and you know, XP is XP, and you get bonus XP for exfilling, but it doesn't really matter that much. Now it does, with the introduction of the 2 new kinds of Ethereum crystals, the refined Ethereum crystals, the epic, and the flawless Ethereum crystals, the legendary. Obtaining those rarer kinds of Ethereum crystals will be much more difficult and much more important, especially because, as we covered in my last video, which I definitely recommend you check it out if you haven't, the tier 4 and tier 5 upgrades for several perks and several field upgrades in this game that will be introduced as part of this update are awesome, borderline crazy overpowered, meaning you'll really want to get those tier 4 and 5 upgrades for perks like Juggernog and Stamina Up, and even field upgrades like Ether Shroud really quickly, which will make your zombies experience a whole lot more easier. But moving on to our second story, along with the release of the Outbreak mode in zombies, Treyarch is doing something very interesting that they've done once before, but they did it kind of at an awkward time where nothing really new was coming out for the zombies mode, but this time they're offering everybody the chance to freely play the new Zombies Outbreak game mode entirely free for anybody for an entire week. So if one of your buddies maybe that you play Warzone with that doesn't have Cold War and wants to try out the zombies mode, they can do that for entirely free during this week. We assume that they won't have access to the regular zombies maps, Die Maschine and Firebase Z, but they will be able to play the new Zombies Outbreak game mode with you, and this seems like, more so than any zombies map, this seems like the game mode that you're going to want to have some friends for. But guys, that wraps up the news today. I want to thank you so much for watching. Hey, if you did enjoy the video, why not leave a thumbs up down below, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and I'll see you with another Zombies news update tomorrow. Peace.